Hello, everybody. I hope everyone is having an amazing Friday. Today it's, I think, the 07. Grace is here, kind of. How you doing, love? So I'm going to start and we're going to begin. Grace, if you could do me a favor and put yourself on mute. And like I said, if you guys have to come and leave throughout the call, then that's fine because it'll be recorded and the output will be sent to you so you can watch my beautiful face talking. Yay! Okay, so we're going to start. I'm always scared I'm going to forget to screen share. This is like the biggest fear that I have. Okay. Ooh, hide. Just want to make sure that you guys can see it. Yes. All right, so we are going to start. This is not my most attractive presentation that I've ever created. So for my fans out there that like my presentations, I'm sorry to disappoint you today. I added GIFs, which is like the second best thing for me because I think GIFs like express who I am as a person. So hopefully this will be good. Anyway, so basically we're going to be going over how to get your EPs to have a faster applied to accepted conversion rate. Just as a reminder, in case you don't know who I am by now, my name is Samira Sanchez, and I'm your current MCVP oGE OGT, and this is me as a baby, you know, so cute. But yes, to go refresh over the first call that I had with you guys yesterday, if you haven't seen it, the output is in the bit.ly with probably the same bit.ly that you got for to get to this call. But we went over ways to get applicants. We were talking about how being strategic with tabling for oGE and OGT, how to push IXP and your LCs, and also promoting discounts for past EPs that have been on a GV exchange, PR placement, so that's connecting with maybe your local radio station or different like ways of communication that you guys have in your universities, whether that's like a newspaper, for them to also help with promotion for you guys, specifically for G and GT. Next one is personal networks, which is pretty self-explanatory, but since a lot of the positions for G and GT do have like very specific requirements, then it's kind of does help you guys out with having, you know, your little marketers, I guess, in your universities that can help that do that for you. The next one is university relations. So we went kind of heavily in this, talking about how to use student organizations, to department heads, professors, or just any connection that you have on campus so that they can basically do the promotion for you guys. Next one is app-focused info session. So this is probably the biggest difference when it comes to at least GV and GT. GE, GT, and GV is UR and app-focused info sessions. So it's having info sessions that are actually trying to promote a specific project instead of just doing promotion of what the product is as a whole, because then the alignment won't be there. The last one is career fairs, and the bit.ly for the career fairs in your area is in the education call for from yesterday. The next thing we went over is routine marketing, so at least twice a week. So it's important to keep that consistent. Processing time. So we also went over the processing times of the different countries. So from applied to accepted in Canada, it's 8 days. In the Americas as a region, it's 7 days. In the United States, it's 14 days. So our EPs are taking quite a long time from applied to accepted conversion rate. A lot of this comes with expectation setting from the beginning and kind of creating and communicating that sense of urgency and aligning with our entity partners. So this is where that's at, and also not getting qualified EPs. And the last one is communicate properly to potential EPs. So kind of explaining to them that they need to apply by a certain deadline, or their spot is going to be given to someone else, and kind of expressing to them that for every opportunity, there's always at least 300 people that apply for one opportunity. So you need to make sure that you kind of put your application in first. So just kind of creating that the competitiveness to G and GT is basically what we went over yesterday when it comes to attraction. For today, we're going to be going over applied to accepted. So the two things that we're going to be going over is entity partner alignment and EP objectives, because these are the two main things that can help with this conversion rate the most. And I love this bit.ly because I think it's hilarious. It's so funny. Okay, anyway, so we're going to be going over EYP alignment. So the first thing is how to do IR, which is international relations, which is entity partner relationships. And the three things we're going to be going over is approval and realization timeline alignment, the goals that you have with this entity partner, and communication channels. From what I've noticed with G and GT, for GT, we don't necessarily have an entity partner strategy because there isn't necessarily an entity right now that has a very high supply in a very high supply and opportunities. For GE, it's more so. However, the opportunities that they have are very limited. And like I said before, it's being that they do get over 300 applications per opportunity or for position, then obviously it is kind of hard for them to filter through the opportunities. But it's important for GE, especially for you guys to align with your entity partners and to not Like, obviously, I can be here to help and support you guys as much as I can, but also you guys can kind of make the effort, not that I'm saying you're not making the effort, but to kind of be the front runner of also making sure that IR is working properly. And if it's not, then to, have an action plan to set that up or to fix that or to combat that. So the first thing that the heck? Okay, so the first thing we're going to be going over is approval and realization timeline, which is a discussion that you should probably have with your entity partner, or if you have a project that you're trying to promote on your local level. I know some LCs do like 2-week sprints for opportunities. So for the first week, if you guys are doing promotion for an opportunity and you get maybe like 15 applicants for the opportunity, then the next week, then you can maybe, not maybe, but you can communicate with the entity partner and be like, we have this many people applying for this opportunity. What can we do to make sure that these people get accepted? I have like this process and like a flow of questions, like what you can talk to or you can ask your entity partner. So the first one is, what will be the process with your EYP once the EP applies? There's some entities that have a form that the EP needs to fill out on top of also applying for the opportunity. And the entity, there's like some entities, for example, Argentina is a prime example, where they don't necessarily use EXPA as much as they use this Podio form. In Greece, if my understanding correctly, they also do the same thing. So it's also aligning to make sure that if your EP is applying on EXPA, for some entities, that's not the only platform that they use to process the EPs. So to make sure that you're aligning with them on that. The next one is, how frequently will the EYP contact the EP? So let's say from the point of from applied, like what is their ideal processing time? Do they want the EP to be accepted within 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, what have you? And to ensure that you're not the only one communicating with the EP, but also the entity partner is also in communication with the EP, so that the EP knows that they're being taken care of on both sides. The next one is, how many EPs can you offer them per opportunity? So this is a prime issue that we're having right now, especially when it comes to entity partners wanting to work with us, and why potentially they're not processing our EPs as quickly, is because we are not providing as many opportunities per opportunity that they would prefer or like, because there's other entities, for example, like Colombia or Brazil, that are giving them like maybe 20 EPs per opportunity that are very qualified, and we're only giving them maybe like 5 per opportunity. So building that trust with an entity partner is very important, and the only way for us to do that is for us to actually show them or prove to them that we actually have the supply to fill that. So also just like making sure you're also being like very transparent with them when it comes to like how many EPs that you're planning on having is really important, because if you are planning on having, for example, 5 EPs, that's fine, but it's important for you to make sure you're communicating that with them properly. The next one is, can the opportunity be extended for a later start date? This is like a prime example that I've noticed, at least on the local level, that like you guys are doing promotion for opportunities, and then the start date might be like the 19th of May, but your EP can't start until like the 23rd of May. With GE in particular, and even with GT also, there's some flexibility sometimes when it comes to the start date. Those start dates are only there for like the ideal time of like when they want an EP to be there, but it definitely can move around depending on the opportunity. Like I said, there's some opportunities that are very strict with the deadline of when the EP needs to arrive, but this is also something that you can communicate with your entity partner with like when exactly the opportunity can start, because then if you can have a later start date, then potentially you will have more applicants for the opportunity depending on your timeline. But these are different questions that you should be talking to an entity partner if you're planning on working with a specific LC, with what exactly you guys could be doing with the approval and realization timeline. When it comes to goal, I love this GIF so much. It's so funny. Okay, when it comes to goal, this is also very important for you guys to align with each other. Is for you to check what is the current processing time for your entity partner. So if you're working, for example, with ISIC in Mexico, and their processing time for EPs is, let's say, for example, let's do like an exaggerated, this is probably not true, but let's say they take like 15 days to accept an EP, then for you to communicate with them, like, I want our EPs to be accepted within 5 days, and what can we do to make sure that processing time moves faster? Whether that means that you need to meet with, the partner, like actually have a meeting with like the startup and be like, okay, I'm here, I'm going to be getting EPs for you, so that they feel more confident and more comfortable actually processing the EPs, is a potential idea that you guys could do to maybe make the processing time a little bit faster. And also, what can you do on your end to ensure that your EPs that are applying quick enough, because that's honestly the biggest issue, is that EPs aren't applying fast enough, and by the time they apply, the spot has been given to somebody else. So this is what hopefully this will be able to take care of. The next one is, how fast are you giving your EPs to apply for opportunities? We went over this in the call yesterday, where we were talking about giving the EPs deadlines to apply for opportunities, because sometimes they take too long. So this really does go heavily into expectation setting that you have with your EPs, to ensure that they are applying at a very fast and efficient pace for them to get an opportunity. The next one is, what is the goal that you want in the partnership? I think sometimes we like to oversell what we're able to provide, and then when we undersell deliver, no, and then when we under deliver, then the partner obviously gets mad. So what I would suggest is that if you do have partners, is for you guys to set up a goal with them. Just tell them like, I want to reserve 10 spots for my EPs. Give me till this date to provide those EPs for you, and if not, then you can give the spots to somebody else. Like I said before, there has been an issue in the past where we don't, supply or give the amount that they want. But if you guys are able to align properly with each other for them to actually save spots for you, then that's important, because obviously they also have to do their job with like filling the opportunity with like the right profiles that they're looking for. So if they're able to find somebody that will do it faster than our EPs, then that's fine. And I think there's a misconception that just because we are US EPs, or that just because we come from the US, that people want to work with us. It's true, they prefer to work with us, but because we take so long, they'd rather go with somebody else that will like actually be committed for the opportunity. So this is really important to align with them. The next one is communication channels. I know that some of you guys have been having a lot of issues, especially when it comes to GE, when it comes to our entity partners with communication. What I would suggest with you guys, at least what I do to ensure that they actually do respond to me, is I don't just send them like one text message or just I don't just spam them with text messages. Like sometimes what I do is I actually call them on WhatsApp and be like, hey, like, how you doing, girl? I'm like, you haven't been responding to me, so what's going on? And then but I know them like as people, and that's like important when you have like the initial meeting with them, that like you have expectation setting of like how often you want them to like be talking to you. So if you guys have the expectation set beforehand, then like you nagging them and being like annoying isn't as big as a deal. Because I know for me, for example, as an MCVP, there's sometimes where like I'm not always on my phone or like checking my messages, and I might not be like the most, fastest at responding to messages. So I'm sure this is like the same case, especially when it comes to MCVPs. So just sending them reminders, like don't feel bad to nag them. Like trust me, it's fine. Like I nag them all the time. So that goes into how frequently you're talking to your EPs. And then the next one is will you ensure the fastest conversion time once an EP applies to be accepted as soon as possible? This also goes into, I know maybe them not like responding to you the fastest, but just ensuring that they are going to respond to you maybe within like 24 hours. And if they don't, then you have the right to nag them. I know like for one entity partner, it is actually Isaac in Canada. His name is Ibi. He's actually the MCP elect now. But I remember for us, like he told me like, if I don't respond on WhatsApp, then send me a Snapchat to remind him to respond. So sometimes you have to work with like how the other partner like works, but also for you to also make sure that you're also being like very responsive when it comes to messages, and not just like being off your phone for like 48 hours because you don't want to do ISIC work for for whatever you're doing, or at least communicating with them, saying like, hey, I'm going to be gone for the next like week or weekend because I'm going to be out with my family, and like I'll be in like in a cabin, but like at least forward them to like somebody that they can still get in contact with to ensure that you're like keeping that communication channel alive. The next thing that we're going to be going over is EP objections. So that's all I have right now for entity partners. Excuse me. So we're going to be going over EP objections, which I think is like another issue that you guys potentially have been having when it comes to processing EPs. So I'm going to give you guys like different scenarios of what EPs have been going through and why they might not be getting accepted really quickly. So the first one is EPs that apparently are doing very well in the process, but they're not getting accepted. I think it's important that when EPs are applying, that you guys are checking their actual profile to see if they actually have everything uploaded properly. I know that when I'm looking through EPs and like I'm checking the opens that we have and I'm like trying to reallocate them, I've noticed that a lot of EPs don't have CVs downloaded on their profile. And if they don't have it downloaded, then obviously they're less likely to get accepted for an opportunity, because they need to, like, especially for GT, they need to see that whenever they're doing shortlists for companies. So please make sure that they're doing that. And if an EP is not being accepted for an opportunity, what I would recommend is to look for feedback from the opportunity manager to see how this EP can improve from their mistakes. So when they apply for another opportunity, that they actually are doing, consistently better. A big issue that I know, especially for GT, is that the CVs that we're getting are not qualified enough. So if you're able to see the OP manager's like feedback on like what exactly they could have done better, then potentially the CV, they can go to like maybe, I don't know, like a career department to like get their CV redone so that they can make themselves look more competitive. But this is one of them. The next one is that EPs don't reply to emails. This is a constant thing that I know has been happening, that an EP takes forever to apply. And then obviously, if they take forever to apply, then obviously they're not going to get accepted as quickly. I think it's important for you guys to understand that just sending emails is not enough. Like, I feel like we've like stressed this a lot already in the past since like you guys maybe first got selected. But I feel like this is still like a constant thing that's happening. You guys will send one email and that will be it for like the rest of the week. But there's no like consistency of you guys actually trying to like get in contact with the EP. So don't be afraid to call or text your EPs. I know that even for me to do it, it sometimes is kind of not tedious, but it is kind of like oh, like, I don't want to contact an EP. But it's really important for you guys to keep that consistency to ensure that this EP is actually interested in going on an exchange. I remember I had a calling session with Isaac in New York City. Not Isaac in New York City, I have a calling session. I was talking with Isaac in New York City, and they were telling me how they had called their EP, and then the EP forgot that they had applied for Isaac, and they asked to be removed from consideration because they found another opportunity or something. So I think it's important for you guys to ensure that you guys are just being in contact with your EPs and not wasting time sending emails constantly to them, because I personally don't think emails can be like the most effective. Like if you think about it yourself, like a lot of students don't necessarily check their emails a lot. I think in ISEC we do, just because that's like our tendency because we're working. But if you're looking at like a regular student, I remember when I was a student before ISEC, I didn't check my email like ever. So like maybe just communicating with them in a way that they'll actually respond is important, and then dropping them once you know that they're not interested, so that you're not wasting your time. The next one is EPs with problems about country or the company preference. It's important whenever you guys have your initial meeting with your EP that you guys are setting the correct expectations and being very realistic about what opportunities or how long it's going to take for them to be accepted for an opportunity, and for them not to be super specific. We always have people come in that always want to work in Europe and want to work in France or in the UK, but those countries have one of the most competitive markets when it comes to GT, especially. So just making sure that you guys are aligning with them, especially for GE, even just like informing them that we have obviously the option, but the likelihood of you getting it is not as high. One thing that's really important is for you to set a deadline before which you will try and keep with them. And after an EP needs to agree to focus on the second preference that he or she has. So if they're like really stubborn and they don't want to like move away from that country, just give them like maybe like a week to like apply for that country and for that opportunity. And then if they get accepted, then okay, then like we can try and work with the entity to see like what we can do to make it work. And if not, then like tell them like, okay, like it didn't work for this past week, like we need to at least have a second preference so we can start finding an opportunity for you. Another thing too, I know like a lot of you guys have been coming to me with like what entities to work with and not work with. I think it's important to notice that an entity, if they are able to run IGE in their entity, that means that they are sustainable enough or have the capacity to run that product, which means, because like for example, ISEC in Argentina just started running IGE, but they only run IGE and OGB. They don't, and oGE, sorry. They don't run any other products because they're not at the level to run those products yet. So if you have, for example, the reason that we have such a low supply of IGE and IGT is because there's not a lot of entities running the product itself. So if you have an EP, for example, that applied for ISEC, like we had, for example, for GE, that we have an EP that applied for ISEC in Ecuador. Like I know them personally, so I know that it'll be fine for them to apply. So if you guys have any issues like EPs applying to random countries, then let me know, because if once they get accepted for an opportunity, like I said, like being that there's 300 applicants per opportunity, then I would definitely just like try and see like what we can do to make sure that they have a complete experience, and then we can move from there with the partnership. The next one is EPs that only apply for one city or country. I think this is also like the same thing that I was saying before, is that for them to make sure that they're being like very open-minded, to not only apply for one city or a country, because obviously we will not have enough supply in that city or country. So this also goes into expectation setting when it comes to what's it called? When it comes to when you have your initial meeting with your EP. Give me one second. Yeah, that's basically it. And it's DJ Khaled, because he's awesome. Okay. The next one is EPs that only apply for big companies and are looking for high salaries. This is really big for GT. So like it says here, like it says here in the description, it says ISEC has big, medium, and small partners, and the EP needs to understand that he or she wants to apply for big partners. The profile needs to be really high. And I think this is something that's vitally important. The ones with the biggest salaries are the ones with our partners. And for our partners, they're looking for very specific things. So for example, like if let's say you want to work for PwC in Mexico or something, then this will require the EP to have working experience. Sometimes it requires the EP to speak 2 or 3 languages. Especially for our global partners, they do take into preference ISEC experience. A lot of MCVPs, once they finish their term, they apply to go to these global partners, and these EPs or past MCVPs are always given preference to these positions, because our global partners obviously value the ISEC experience more than just like a regular student. And in some cases they also need a master's degree. So these profiles that they're looking for are very like high end, especially when it comes to like our big global partners for GT. So please make sure that you're being very straightforward and honest with them when it comes to like what opportunities they're exactly applying for. Because if they're applying for the ones with the high salaries that are global partners, then the likelihood of them getting it is not very high. So try and redirect them to like maybe like a medium partner or a small partner, so that they will have a more of a likelihood to get accepted. And then obviously, like the other thing like says on the bottom is be careful in selling GT in the application of the global partners, because the selection process takes around 2 months for the global partners that we have, because they have so many people applying for them, because they're so like you get a very nice salary, and also potential to also work afterward, like in the US branch. So this is very important when it comes to GT. Final tips that I have with you guys when it comes to EPs also is use different communication channels with your EPs, like Facebook, WhatsApp, whatever. I don't even know if people use Skype. I know some people use Skype. So that facilitates things faster, and personalize it to your EP's taste. So some EPs, for example, I know they only like to communicate through Facebook. Some EPs only like to communicate through WhatsApp. Some EPs don't use WhatsApp. They only use iMessage, which I know for you as an EP manager makes it kind of difficult, but you need to make sure, like if they're not responding to you, then like obviously you need to adapt how you're managing them to what best fits them. The next one is be personal with your EPs. This is something that I realized the most during my time as a VP, is that if you're able to build that relationship with your EPs, you kind of know like what exactly they're looking for, and then you're able to build like that kind of trust, and they're a lot easier to work with. So whether that means, for example, like sometimes I would have meetings with my EPs, like at a cafe. There was one time I went to a bar with one of them, but it doesn't always have to be like in a formal setting, because like obviously like they need to see us like as a professional organization. But if you're just gonna have like a one-on-one meeting with them, it's important to also get to know them like as a person. So maybe having these like informal conversations might be really helpful and beneficial for you guys, as long as they're effective and efficient. The next one is send your EPs potential opportunities. I think this is like really helpful. I know in some other LCs they do this, is for each EP, like every week they will find like maybe 2 or 3 opportunities that they think best fits the EP, and the EP manager will send that to the EP so that they can apply quickly. And then on the bottom of the email they put like a deadline of when they need to apply for these specific opportunities, so that there's like a sense of urgency, and there's always like communication coming in. What I would suggest also is when you send emails like with the potential opportunities, for you to also text them, or I don't know, maybe send them a Snapchat, whatever works for them, or an Instagram message. Just letting them know like, hey, I just sent you an email, check it out when you have the chance, with like other opportunities that you have available. The next one is tell your EPs to be in contact with other EPs that are also searching for opportunities. Especially for GE, this creates a sense of camaraderie. Camaraderie. I can't see the word. I think you guys know what I'm trying to say. And then, or EPs that are already realized, so they can have good advices or recommendations. So sometimes when you're working with entity partners, say for example, you're trying to send someone to ISIC in Greece, some EPs like they want to also understand like what the reality of living in that area is. So if you have like an EP that ISIC in Greece can give you to be in contact with our EPs, that'll be really beneficial for them to maybe feel more confident and comfortable in actually applying for the opportunity. The last thing, like I've said multiple times, is set deadlines with their EPs and don't stop following up with them. I know sometimes it might seem like obviously don't like be like super crazy and like micromanaging them, but like just make sure you're at least keeping a constant communication with them, because as OGX, like we have like a sales and a customer service side, and this is really important for you to ensure that you're being like as fast and efficient with your EPs. And if you're taking, like I would recommend that like once they message you, like at least in 12 hours, like you need to have a response back to them, to make sure that they know that you care for them, like will actually be taking care of them. The last piece of advice that I have for you guys, like overall, when it comes to applied to accepted, from the point of attraction, like attraction is like vitally important. You need to set alignment with your EPs and EYPs, whether that means they need to apply for a specific opportunity by this deadline, or they only have 7 weeks to apply for an opportunity, or for your entity partners, be like, okay, we're doing promotion for the next 2 weeks. Just keep an eye out for our EPs and make sure that you're processing them quickly. Excuse me. This is really vitally important for you to ensure that your applied to accepted conversion rate will be faster, so you're not just selling like GE or GT as a product, but you're selling just the projects as a whole. So it's a lot easier, more direct for you. The last thing that I want to give you guys with GE and GT, I know that it requires a lot of patience and we have to work a lot heavily with entity partners. But like I said before, like I've said multiple times, like per applicant or per opportunity, there's like 1 position on average, or 2 maybe on average, if that. For GEs, like it's between 1 to 3 sometimes, and then for GT it's always mainly 1 opportunity for applicant. So it's important for you guys to understand that, like, also on the hosting side, they get a bunch of messages from people all the time saying like, hey, I have an EP that's applied for this opportunity, can you process them? Because like I said before, there's around 300 people that apply per opportunity. So you can imagine being on the receiving end of that, constantly getting messages from people saying that like, hey, like, I'm an EP that applied. So that's why it's important for you guys to set that alignment in the beginning. It's still not too late to kind of set that. Like, obviously it would have been good if you guys said it earlier, but if you guys still have LCs that you guys want to work with, kind of getting in contact with them now, getting to know them as like build a strong relationship with them, not just an ISEC relationship. That's what I've noticed, have like the strong relationships when you actually know them as friends. But my advice to you guys is to be patient as much as you can, because like some entities, like even though they do take some while to like respond, they're like working. The next one is being very resilient. Like I said before, if you're only contacting an entity partner once, and that's like your standard of being in contact with the entity partner, and you're not like actually consistently messaging them and like harassing them, then obviously there's going to be some, like, I'm not saying you're not trying hard enough, but there needs to be more consistency that happens. The next one is being adaptable, especially when it comes to entity for your EPs, for you to make sure that when you're talking to them, that you guys are setting their expectation that they need to be adaptable. And the fourth one is a sense of urgency for them to also understand that there's not enough openings there's not enough openings per applicant, so they need to like apply right away so that they have like their spot reserved, or however you want to communicate it. And that's all I have for this call. My throat is really dry. Do you guys have any questions or comments?
It's just me.
Oh, hey, Mama. Okay, I'm going to cancel this, and then we can talk. Bye, everyone.